Our reading this morning is the poem Holding Vigil by Alison Luterman. My cousin asks if I can describe this moment, the heaviness of it, like sitting outside the operating room while someone you love is in surgery, and you're in one of those awful plastic chairs, eating flaming Doritos from the vending machine, which is the only thing that seems appealing to you dinner-wise, waiting for the moment when the doctor will come out in her scrubs and face mask, which she'll pull down to tell you whether your beloved will live or not. That's how it feels as the hours tick by and everyone I care about is texting me with the same cold lump in their throat, asking if I'm okay, telling me how scared they are. I suppose, in that way, this is a moment of unity. The fact that we are all waiting in the same hospital corridor for the same patient who is on life support, and we're asking each other, will he wake up? Will she be herself? And we're taking turns holding vigil, as families do, and bringing each other coffee from the cafeteria. And some of us think she's going to make it, while others are already planning what they'll wear to the funeral, which is also what happens at times like these. And I tell my cousin I don't think I can describe this moment, heavier than plutonium. But on the other hand, in the grand scheme of things, I mean the whole sweep of human history, a soap bubble. Because empires are always rising and falling, and whole civilizations die, they do. They get wiped out. This happens all the time. It's just a shock when it happens to your civilization, your country, when someone in your family is on the respirator. And I don't ask her how she's sleeping or what she thinks about when she wakes at 3 a.m, because she's got 2 daughters, and that's the thing. It's not just us older people. Forget about us. We had our day, and we burned right through it with gasoline, fast food, cheap clothes, and right now, I'm talking about the babies. Not just the human babies, but the turtles and owls and white tigers and redwoods, the ozone layer, the icebergs. For the love of God, every single blessed being on the face of this earth is holding its breath in this moment. And if you're asking, can I describe that, cousin? Then I've got to say no. No one could describe it. We all just have to live through it, holding each other's hands. Here ends the reading. The last time I was up here, I shared some reflections from my brief time this past summer learning about hospital chaplaincy. Those reflections focused on what I discovered about my own biases, about how I could better live out my commitment to honoring the inherent worth and dignity of every person. But in the months since that summer of chaplaincy and self-reflection, some things have changed. From the threats directed at our trans siblings, our immigrant siblings, to the ever-looming and worsening global threats of climate catastrophe and colonization, there is so much to be fearful of. And there are so many suffering right now, here and around the globe, while we watch our national leaders slide further and further into fascism. In the face of all this, I find myself returning again and again to the new sense of resilience I found working at the hospital. I had to find my own strength and resilience to push through the anxiety of constantly reaching out to strangers, constantly risking rejection or risking offering the wrong kind of care. But I also got to witness just how much care and love everyone is walking around with all the time, and how easily it can spill out in offer to one another. This was an important reminder for me because, as our reading this morning put it, every blessed being on the face of this earth is holding its breath in this moment. That poem may have been written in light of the presidential election, but it speaks to something much bigger than that. We are feeling the weight of this moment, not just in the course of our own lives or in the story of this country, but on a global, geological scale. And many of us feel, understandably, at a loss for the resources to carry on under the weight of this moment. To journey through this mess together with hope and joy rather than just fear or anger or desperation. My time at the hospital has helped remind me that this fear and this anger and this desperation at the state of the world all tap into the same source as the balm for these pains. This experience has helped show me more clearly and viscerally than ever how it is the depth of our love for one another that gives us the capacity for such pain. My clearest personal example of this comes not from any interactions with any patients, but from a story of my own childhood that the hospital experience caused me to reflect on. One of my assignments was to the burn intensive care unit. I thought it was a little funny when I got this assignment because one of the only times I've been to the hospital, it was when I was badly burned as a child. I didn't end up in the ICU or anything like that, but I wondered if working in the burn ICU might bring up anything from this early childhood experience. I didn't discover any new meanings to the actual experience of being burned and going to the hospital. Instead, I find myself with a better understanding of a different part of the story. It was Memorial Day weekend, and my parents had a couple of friends over for a little cookout in our backyard. After dinner, my parents made a campfire for the ambiance and the s'mores. So we're all sitting around the fire. My brother and I are roasting marshmallows. My brother is older. He's about 8 at the time. And this happens to be part of the very brief window in which my brother was a Boy Scout. So we have a bucket of water next to the fire, a precaution that we would not have taken if he had not been actively trying to earn his fire safety badge. So my brother and I, we're roasting our marshmallows, sitting in these ancient metal folding chairs, and I'm scooching forward to the edge of my seat to get my marshmallow deeper into the fire when suddenly my chair snaps shut and my 5-year-old self is propelled face first towards the campfire. I avoided any major facial burns by throwing out a hand to stop myself. Now, I'm right-handed, so you'd think I would have broken my fall with my right hand. But somehow, despite the shock of the situation, my right hand maintained a firm grip on my marshmallow stick, and I threw my left hand directly into a burning log. My dad sees me flying through the air and jumps into action. He scoops me up out of the campfire and plunges my hand into the Boy Scout badge-earning bucket of water while everyone lets out their collective breath. But as things are calming down, the grown-ups are looking around and notice that my big brother is gone. He has fled the scene. They run across the yard shouting for him and find him eventually locked in the cab of our dad's pickup truck. He is sobbing and yelling and holding his hands over his ears. When I was a kid, I thought it was kind of silly that my brother ended up crying and needing so much comfort when I was the one who got burned. It wasn't until I was much older that I could start to really appreciate what a difficult and traumatic situation it was for him. He just watched his beloved little sister flung into a campfire. He was always a sensitive little kid, and in that moment, just so totally overwhelmed by seeing someone he loved getting hurt that he had to go find somewhere where he could let it all out. In my brief experience of hospital chaplaincy, if there's one thing that hospitals are missing, it is more designated space to go and let it all out. There should be a room on every floor with a good couch and a heavy door where people can come and just cry and scream and do whatever they have to do. In addition to meeting patients, I had the privilege of meeting family members and dear friends who populated the visiting hours, or who dropped everything to keep vigil, sleeping in chairs, bringing offerings of entertainment and non-hospital food. And sometimes, especially when a patient was busy or sleeping, we would get the chance to see just how much these families and friends are barely holding it together. We see just how deeply they too are in need of spiritual and emotional support. They may not be sick or injured, but witnessing someone you love suffer makes you suffer all the same. As a part of our hospital duties, we were sometimes on call, meaning that when there was a patient in need of immediate life-saving medical intervention, the team of providers who swarm to the room includes a chaplain. As chaplains, we of course have nothing to offer in the actual medical life-saving process. But if there should happen to be a family member or a friend on the scene, we are there to offer a shoulder to cry on, a hand to hold, to sit in the despair as a reminder that it is not theirs alone. Now, as I hold the hand of a wife who is crying and yelling and begging with God to save her husband, or as I think back to my brother crying in the pickup truck, it still breaks my heart. But it also reminds me just how undeniably bound we are by love to one another. To be bound together in love means we are vulnerable to so many more kinds of hurt. And it means we never have to carry that hurt alone. As we continue to journey together through whatever the universe has in store, may our capacity to feel this pain, to acknowledge the weight and uncertainty of this life, remind us just how much we have in our hearts to pour out for one another. In the words of this morning's reading, whatever we face as individuals, as a country, as a globe, we all just have to live through it, holding each other's hands. Amen, and blessed be.